Mr. President, I listened with great attention to the speech just given by my friend from New York. Senator Schumer's right on target. And when he's talking about who are we fighting for here? Just what are we here in the Senate for? What are we here to do? Who are we fighting for? You know, I've often said the one thing about the very wealthy in our country, you know, they're pretty good at taking care of themselves. Obviously, they wouldn't be rich if they weren't. But what about the people that don't have much? Who's fighting for them? And this is what I want to spend some time talking about, and that's the unemployed in this country. You know, last week we were home for Thanksgiving. I hope everyone had a good time with their families. Now we're looking at the upcoming holidays with anticipation, as we do every year, to be with our families, go out and buy some presents, exchange presents, kids, grandkids, festive time. But what about all those people that are out of work and have no money, who right now are being cut off of the only lifeline they have, which are unemployment insurance benefits, losing them day after day because they ended 2 days ago. And by the time Christmas rolls around, somewhere close to 2 million Americans not only will be out of a job, but will have no source of income whatsoever, facing another winter season, celebrating the holidays with nothing. I had a newspaper headline I showed the other day that said that luxury spending hits new high. Luxury spending. Oh, luxury spending is back in fashion. About how much money was being spent on jewels and fancy wristwatches and high-end types of things. And then right under it in small print, it said that, however, for millions of Americans, they're not shopping anywhere because they're out of work. The two faces of America. Is that what we want this country to be? A few that can spend on lavish, jewel-encrusted watches, buying $2,500 cashmere scarves, as I just read about the other day, and everybody else sort of getting in the soup line. We're a better country than that. We're a better country than that. And you know, that's what I wanted to talk about, is about reauthorizing the emergency unemployment insurance program. But first of all, I listened to my friend, my colleague from Iowa, talk about, Senator Grassley talked about taxes. I didn't hear the whole speech, but I heard him say that raising taxes never reduces the deficit or reduces the debt. I don't know which he said, either the debt or the deficit. Well, I hate to disagree with my friend, but in 1993, when we enacted the Clinton economic proposal, it included increasing taxes. 1993. Oh, I remember Senator from Texas, Senator Phil Gramm, an economist, got up and said, oh, this is going to cause a depression. This will be the worst thing that ever happened to this country. We're going to rue the day we ever did this. Well, we passed it. Of course, it didn't get one Republican vote. And we did raise some taxes. 1993. And what happened then for the next 7 years, 8 years? We had unprecedented growth in this country. And quite frankly, we did balance the budget. By 2000, not only did we balance it, we had a surplus. And we had a surplus going into 2001. And that's when George Bush came to the presidency. He said, oh, we got this big surplus. And Alan Greenspan was warning us that we had too much of a surplus and it might not be wise to pay down the debt. We were on course to pay down the national debt. And then the Bush administration pushed through some tax cuts. Pushed through tax cuts, which they said, oh, we're just going to do it temporarily, you see, just until 2010. And we'll keep them in until 2010, and then we'll have to revisit it. Or we'll go back to what we had before in 2001. They made that deal. I didn't vote for it. I didn't think we should cut taxes that time. I thought we should pay off the national debt. That would have strengthened our economy more than anything. But no, the Bush administration, the Republicans who controlled the House and the Senate, said no, they wanted to cut the taxes, and most of the taxes were cut, as my friend from New York said, for the very wealthy. And what happened? Did we have a lot of job growth? Not a bit. Not a bit. Not only did we not get job growth, the deficit skyrocketed. So I really don't want to hear any exhortations from that side of the aisle about how raising taxes has never reduced the deficit or the debt. We did under Bill Clinton. Proof is there. We had a surplus. But they wanted the tax breaks to give to the wealthy. And lastly, like my friend from New York said, about being held hostage. Now, there's been a lot of talk about middle-income Americans getting a tax break. But I ask, and I keep asking, who are middle-income Americans? Who are they? Well, I keep hearing that it's $250,000 a year or below. $250,000 a year? My friends, if you're making $250,000 a year, you are in the top 5% of the income earners of America. That's right. If you make $250,000 a year, 95% of the American people make less than you do. So is that middle class? I don't think so. To me, the middle class are the people that are making 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90,000 bucks a year. That's the broad middle class of America. A lot of people in America living on 40,000 bucks a year. Might be hard for some people here to think about that, but that's true. You know, they don't take fancy trips. They don't have fancy cars. They don't go to fancy restaurants. They don't wear suits and ties every day. But they're working. And a lot of them are working at jobs that are important to our society. They may be nurses' aides. They may be taking care of our elderly in a nursing home or an assisted living. They may be our child care workers, taking care of our children. They could be working in fast food places. And they're making 35, 40, 50,000 bucks a year, and that's it. That's the middle class of America. What are we doing for them? What are we doing for that middle class? So every time I hear about this 250,000 and below as middle class, I'm thinking, wait a second. You're talking about the top 5% in America. Now, if you want to talk about the broad middle class, you've got to start talking about people making less than 100,000 bucks a year. What are we doing for them? Well, it seems to me if we're going to have some tax breaks and stuff, we got to think about this group. And in that group of the broad middle class is the army of the unemployed. That's where the unemployed are. The unemployed are not on Wall Street. They got their bailouts. They're getting $1 million bonuses this year. And my friends on the Republican side want to extend the tax break, so not only do they get their $1 million bonuses, they won't have to pay their fair share of taxes on them either. Not to mention that some of them are getting these bonuses, the way they're getting their money, they're being charged at the lowest possible tax rate. Not as regular income, but as a capital gains. But I'm not going to get into that right now. So what are the Republicans doing? They're saying that we can't extend the unemployment benefits for the millions of Americans who are unemployed until and unless we have tax breaks for the wealthiest Americans. Those making over $250,000, $500,000, over $1 million, they don't care. Just, no matter what, no matter who you are, no matter how much money you make, we got to give them tax breaks. Or we cannot extend unemployment benefits to the unemployed. You want to talk about hostages? The Republicans in this Congress are holding hostage the unemployed workers in America because they want to get the tax breaks for the wealthiest. That's what's happening here. And I don't know that many American people know about that. Oh, they see us debate this stuff and back and forth and who's going to get these tax breaks. But right now, unemployment benefits have run out. We have asked, I think, 3 or 4 times, if I'm not mistaken, on the Senate floor for unanimous consent to extend the unemployment benefits. And the Republicans have objected every single time. Why? Because they wrote a letter. Yesterday, the Republican leader had a letter signed by every single Republican in the Senate that said that they will not allow any bill to pass the Senate unless and until we pass a bill giving tax breaks to the wealthiest Americans. It almost begs credulity. You wonder, is this real? I mean, they really mean that? Well, they signed their name to it. That means we can't extend unemployment benefits until we give in to the Republicans and give tax breaks to the wealthiest Americans. What a deal. What a deal. Holding people who are at the end of their rope, the most vulnerable in our society, holding them hostage for their Wall Street friends. And, I hear a lot of them talking about, well, I've heard this said by someone on the other side that, well, unemployment benefits makes people lazy. Huh? If you get them unemployment benefits, they won't look for work. Well, Mr. President, let me talk for a minute about what the labor market looks like right now, and we'll see if these people are really lazy. Right now, there are 15 million people who want a job, can't find one. About 9 million people forced to work part-time because they can't get a full-time job, and they had one. There are another number of people who have looked for a job, and they've given up. They've been out of work for 2 years. And as you know, after 99 weeks, you don't get any unemployment benefits whatsoever. And a lot of people have been out of work for over 99 weeks. They have nothing. That means that our unemployment rate is not around 9%. It's about 17 to 18%. And these unemployed workers are looking for work. What people have to understand is that before you can get unemployment benefits, you have to be actively looking for work. It's a requirement in order to get it. But what's happening out there? Workers can't find jobs because there aren't any. 1 job for every 5 workers. Well, it says here 14.8 million workers unemployed. That's not really true. It's actually about 26 million. That's just 14.8 million unemployed. When you take in those that have given up because they've gone beyond 99 weeks, when you take into account those that work part-time because they were working full-time, but now they can only get a part-time job, it adds up to almost 26 million. But let's just take Bureau of Labor statistics as they are. 14.8 million workers, 2 million job openings. 1 for about every 5. Actually, it's less than that. If you really look at the overall picture, it's more about 1 in 8 to 1 in 10. So in other words, for about every 8 to 10 workers, there's 1 job out there someplace. So most workers will lose on this kind of game of musical chairs. You run around when the music stops, 1 person gets a job, 6 or 7 people don't have one. So I challenge my Republican friends, how can 6 or 7 or 8 people find a job when there's only 1 available? And that's why we have so many people facing long-term unemployment. Over 6 million people have been out of work for more than half a year. I saw a lot of them that were here in Washington yesterday, out of work for more than a half a year. 4 in 10 workers, what we call the long-term unemployed, have been unemployed and looking for a job for at least 6 months. And this is higher than in any previous recession. Here, our recession is going back to 1950 in terms of the share of the total unemployed. But just, you can see the graph here in terms of who has been unemployed for more than 6 months. And as you can see, as we go from the 1950s to here, look at where this line now goes in 2010. More than we've ever had in going clear back to the 1950s. Long-term unemployed. Long-term unemployed. Higher than any previous recession. It's the highest in 60 years. Highest in 60 years. And they're being held hostage by the Republicans. And long-term unemployment is especially common among older workers over age 50. People who've worked all their lives, they've saved for retirement, and they've lost their jobs, and they are having a very difficult time to find new work. Year and a half, 2 years. I've met people out of work for well over 2 years. And again, they can't find work because it's not there. Through no fault of their own. Through no fault of their own. So I said our economy needs at least 11 million jobs, at least. It's obvious to say that people who are unemployed are lazy and shouldn't get benefits. You say that, you're just out of touch. You're out of touch with the real world and what's happening out there and the difficult circumstances that face our hardworking American families. I know, I tell you, I get a lot of letters, I'm sure the occupant of the chair does too, from his home state, of people who are just at wit's end. And they just tear your heart out. 50-year-old woman from Altoona, Iowa, been employed since November of 2009, a year and a month. She wrote me, I can't even get a job at McDonald's right now, and believe me, I've tried everywhere. Unemployment insurance is helping her get by, but she's worried about running out of benefits, which just happened 2 days ago. I got this letter before 2 days ago. Her unemployment benefits are out. An unemployed school teacher from Estherville, Iowa, wrote me. She said, I've never felt so humiliated in 20 years. I've been a productive and hardworking woman since I was 13, but now I feel insignificant. She wrote me that this summer. This month, she wrote me again. She said, I have tried to find employment in other states, all over Iowa, in every form of employment you can imagine, convenience stores, fast food, factories. I'm a high school math teacher with 3 college degrees, and I can't find a job. If it weren't for unemployment, I'd be on food stamps. But without unemployment insurance, she doesn't know what she's going to do. Cross her off. Just lost hers a couple of days ago, too. These are just 2 examples, but there are millions in this season. From now to New Year, 2 million people will be cut off if we don't continue these programs. In Iowa, my home state, more than 10,000 people will be cut off from their benefits during this holiday season. And if we don't do anything, we would face 6 million by April, left without any source of income, hanging by a thread. Their savings are exhausted. Their unemployment benefits are the thin lifeline keeping them afloat. Congress has never cut back emergency unemployment benefits when the unemployment rate was as high as it is now, and this is no time to start. Here's, again, going back to the 1950s, 1959, when we had high rates of unemployment. Every single time, Congress passed emergency funding to keep unemployment benefits going. That is, until now. Republicans have said, oh, they'll extend it, but they want to pay for it. About $56 billion to extend it for 1 year. They have to pay for it, and how they want to pay for it is to take money out of the Recovery Act. There's still some unexpended money there that's gone out. It's going out for things like roads and bridges and infrastructure projects that put people to work. So they want to take money from that, which is giving people some jobs and helping build our infrastructure, to put into unemployment benefits. When, going back to 1959 through Republican and Democratic administrations, we have always said this is an emergency, and that's the way we fund it. Well, Republicans say, well, we got a huge deficit. We can't do that anymore. Then why are they so intent on passing a tax cut bill, extending a tax cut for the wealthiest Americans, and they don't pay for it? They put it on the deficit, not for $56 billion, for $700 billion. Oh, they're willing to do that. They're willing to do that for the wealthiest, but not for people at the end of the rope, the unemployed. So, I guess we've entered a new era in this country. We don't help the unemployed, we just help the wealthy. That's all we do. That's why we're here, I guess. Look at that. We ought to be ashamed of ourselves. I ask, have my Republican friends lost all sense of fairness? Have my Republican friends on the other side of the aisle lost all sense of justice? Have they lost all sense of what's right and wrong? Where's the moral outrage? Where's the moral outrage that we're going to let people stand in the soup lines for Christmas, but we're going to give tax breaks to the wealthiest? We're going to give million-dollar bonuses to people on Wall Street who, by the way, caused a lot of these problems. And we won't even make them pay their fair share of taxes. Where's the outrage? Well, I'll tell you, it's out there, Mr. President. American people are sensing this. They're saying, wait a minute, Congress wants to pass this big tax break and they won't help the unemployed? Well, they get it. They get it. And Congress is, I can't believe that we're doing this. And I can't believe my friends on the other side of the aisle are so hard-hearted that they would hold hostage, that they would not let us move a bill to extend the unemployment benefits until we pass their bill to extend the tax breaks to the wealthiest Americans. Where is our sense of moral outrage at this? Well, just one other thing, Mr. President. Unemployment benefits that we give out to people is not money that's just thrown down a rat hole. Quite frankly, one of the best economic stimuluses that we have is unemployment benefits, believe it or not. Now, why is that? Well, because people who get unemployment benefits, and right now in my state it averages about $300 a week. And that's about a national average. It's about right about there, about $300 a week. You can figure it out. That's about $15,000 a year. That's lower than the poverty wage, by the way. If you think unemployment benefits are some big deal, it's lower than the poverty wage. So when they get that money, what do? They go out and they buy groceries. They buy some clothes for their kids. They buy the necessities of life. And that money acts as a multiplier throughout our economy. Now, this is Mark Zandi, Moody'sEconomics.com, about what the GDP increase is generated by $1 of stimulus going to these various things. Food stamps is the best. For every dollar we put into food stamps, $1.74, we get an increase in GDP of $1.74. Again, because people spend those food stamps on food, most of which is grown, produced, processed, packaged, shipped, and bought in America. Unemployment benefits is right next to that, $1.61 increase in GDP for every dollar we put out there. Again, for the same reason. These people are not, people with unemployment benefits, they're not using these to buy a Mercedes. They're not using these to buy a new high-definition 3D flat-screen TV made in Japan. They're not using these to buy a a gold-encrusted, diamond-studded Rolex watch made in Switzerland. They're using these to buy the necessities of life, most of which are made here in America. Extending the Bush tax cuts, for every dollar we put into it, we get back 32 cents in GDP growth. But that's what the Republicans want. Why, if we're trying to stimulate the economy, would we put a dollar into something that only returns us 32 cents when we can put a dollar into unemployment benefits, get $1.61, or put a dollar into, how about infrastructure investments? You get back $1.57. And aid to the states, but infrastructure, look at that, very close to unemployment benefits. Yet, the Republicans want to take money out of this and put it here. Why don't we take money out of here? We're only getting back 32 cents and put it here. Seems to me that's a better deal for our economy. So it creates jobs. And we get an increase in economic activity in our country. As I said earlier, here it is. The average UI benefit is about $15,600. Poverty level, $21,756 for a family of four. It's powerful. It's a powerful benefit. Food, clothes, housing, utilities, all of the things that you need just to keep life going. That's what these unemployment benefits are spent on. And with the holidays coming up, our economy needs the money. People need the benefits. Ending the unemployment programs, cutting off that revenue would be counterproductive for jobs. Certainly counterproductive for the people who need these benefits. It doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense economically to cut off unemployment benefits, but more importantly, it makes no sense morally. It makes no sense morally. There is such a thing as right and wrong. There is such a thing as fair and unfair and just and unjust. It is not just. It's not fair. And it's not right. That through no fault of their own, we're saying to these people, the unemployed in America, the millions, you can take it whether it's 14.9 or closer to 26 million or anywhere in between there. It's just not right to say that, well, we'll extend your unemployment benefits after we increase or we extend the Bush tax cuts for the wealthiest in our society. Totally irresponsible. Totally irresponsible. But that's where we find ourselves. That's where we find ourselves. And I say to the President of the United States, I say, Mr. President, you made a lot of promises when you were campaigning in my state of Iowa. Made a lot of them, and one of the most you made was you were going to hold the line. You were going to hold the line, Mr. President. You said this time and time and time again at $250,000. You would extend the tax breaks for middle income below $250,000. You got to hold to that, Mr. President. You got to hold to it. You got to hold to it. And we'll see if the Republicans want to shut down the government. Do they want to shut the government down? That's what they're saying. Because we're going to have a resolution here on the floor because it's going to run out, a resolution to keep the government going. They're saying they will not pass that unless and until we extend the Bush cuts for the wealthiest. I dare them. I would dare the Republicans to shut the government down just because they want to give tax breaks to the wealthy. I say, if that's what they want to do, let the American people see the extent to which the Republicans will go in order to help their wealthy friends. So, Mr. President, hold to your guns. Hold to your guns on $250,000 and below. Don't give in. Don't give up. The American people are behind you, Mr. President. They're behind you on this one. and tell them you want unemployment benefits extended. You want unemployment benefits extended. You want middle class taxes breaks extended. And we want to fund the government. We want to not let us go into default. We want that first. Don't give up, Mr. President. The American people will be behind you. And this Congress will be behind you, too. Mr. President, with that, I yield the floor.